Hey everyone, it's Zach Beck. 2020 was a tough year financially. Since March of 2020, nearly 33% of Americans withdrew money early out of their retirement account, and that is because the CARES Act allowed individuals to make penalty-free withdrawals up to $100,000 out of either their 401K, their IRA, or other retirement account. Now, unfortunately, the newest stimulus measure entitled the American Rescue Plan does not allow these early withdrawals any longer. So what I want to do in this video is share alternative ways that you can access your funds from your retirement accounts early, penalty-free, but also simultaneously employ strategies right now that can help you secure your financial future long-term. So let's take our time, dive into the details, and jump to it right now. .401Ks and IRAs are common ways that people save for retirement, and millions of Americans pour money into them every single year. However, unforeseen circumstances sometimes cause people to need to access funds out of those accounts before the age of 59.5. Now, generally, if you need to pull that money out before the age of 59.5, you will be hit with a 10% penalty as well as the taxes on that as well. So generally speaking, there's a lot of barriers for people to actually want to access these funds, but sometimes you need to do so. In the last pandemic that we just went through really was one of those circumstances that caused a lot of people to access those funds. As previously mentioned, the CARES Act, which was passed back in March of 2020, allowed individuals to withdraw money up to $100,000 out of their retirement account penalty-free. Now, if you took that withdrawal, bear in mind that you still owe the taxes on that, and that is going to be paid out over the course of 3 years, or you can pay all at 1 year. So it's really up to yourself, and the other alternative is that you can actually repay that money back into your retirement account. But as I previously mentioned, this is no longer extended into the year of 2021. The one thing you will find though is that the CARES Act isn't the only thing attributed to your retirement account that was passed last year. On that note, the Tax Relief Act was passed back in 2020, and this allows individuals to make penalty-free withdrawals out of their retirement accounts if they've been a part of a qualified disaster. So if you were affected by a fire, a hurricane, or other qualified disaster, then you are eligible to actually withdraw money out of your retirement account early. If you find yourself in a circumstance right now where you actually need to access these funds, I just want you to understand the costs associated with that. There are substantial costs associated with taking money early out of your retirement account. And like I said previously, you're going to have to pay taxes on that, but also you'll have that 10% penalty. So if you want to avoid that, there are only a few circumstances that allow you to do so. Like I said previously, the qualified disasters could be one, and there are others I'm going to talk about in a second. But I just want you to understand that when you're saving for retirement, you really want to think about that as future money that you're basically paying forward to yourself. So if you are going to consider accessing those funds, it really should be a last resort, because one of the benefits that you gain from putting money into a 401k or an IRA is the benefit of compound interest. And when you have money sitting in your account at a longer period of time, it's going to have more time to compound and actually grow. And if you take money out of that, you do lose a lot of those benefits, and it will then take you a longer time for that account to grow at the rate you want it to. Because once again, you want to bear in mind that when you're going into an IRA or a 401k, those are simply accounts that you use to invest into the stock market. And it's generally ideal when you're investing in the stock market long term is to buy and hold as opposed to trying to buy and then immediately sell. So when you're actually accessing funds out of your retirement account, you're in effect selling stocks, and then you're losing the possibility for those stocks to grow over time. So it's just something that you want to consider and bear in mind that if you're going to withdraw money early out of your retirement account, it's basically a last resort. If you find yourself in a situation where you need to withdraw funds early out of your retirement account, there are a few situations that actually are applicable in this instance. And this is important to note that if you're going to do so and withdraw money early, penalty-free, any of the future circumstances that I lay out, you still need to pay the taxes on the withdrawal. Furthermore, I'd highly recommend that you talk to your 401k plan administrator before doing anything to this extent, or talking directly to a financial advisor. I'm not a financial advisor, I'm just a guy on YouTube, but I'm hoping that what I share with you can actually benefit you and at least point you in the right direction as you're hoping to try and access these funds. The first circumstance that enables you to withdraw funds early out of your IRA penalty-free before the age of 59.5 is actually education. If you're going to pay for tuition, books or other fees associated with education costs, let's say that you go to graduate school again or something to that extent, you can actually use your retirement funds out of your IRA specifically and do so penalty free. This is also applicable to your spouse, your children, as well as their descendants. So it's a pretty interesting element that you're allowed to access these funds early and distribute it accordingly, but it's only in the case of an IRA and it's only in the case of education. Now, you could potentially do so for a 401k, but it's highly unlikely. You would need to talk to your 401k plan administrator, but specifically for an IRA, you could actually access your funds early and then put them into education. Once again, this would be a last resort if you have no other way to pay for education and you need to go back to school or something to that extent, but it's just something you want to be aware of. An alternative way that you can access your funds early out of your IRA without paying penalties and doing so before the age of 59.5 is actually for a first-time home purchase. And this can be up to $10,000 that you can withdraw to actually use towards paying for a home. And the IRS defines purchasing a first-time home relatively loosely. If you've purchased a home previously, you're actually allowed to do this again if you haven't owned a home within the last 2 years. And this is also applicable for your spouse, for your children, as well as for their qualified descendants. So this is an interesting element that's written into the code, but if you are right now needing to purchase a home and you don't have the funds to do so, you can actually access them up to $10,000 through your IRA. Now, there's also the ability to do what's called a hardship withdrawal out of, say, your 401k or something like this, but bear in mind that if you were to do this for a 401k, you'd still likely be hit with not only the taxes associated with that, but also you'd have to pay that 10% penalty. So once again, this is mostly attributed towards an IRA. Another situation that allows you to withdraw funds early out of your 401k or your IRA is actually for qualified medical expenses. If you incur expenses that are unrefundable, over 10% of your adjusted gross income, you're allowed to withdraw funds and pay that out of your IRA penalty free. Now, you could do the same thing from your 401k if those expenses exceed 7.5% of your adjusted gross income. Now, once again, I'm hoping you're not facing this circumstance right now, but if this is one of the reasons why you actually need to access funds early, you're eligible to do so due to the IRS's code, and you can take it out of your IRA or your 401k if you have the qualified threshold for medical expenses associated with your adjusted gross income. If none of the previous circumstances apply to yourself, there is one last alternative that you can utilize in order to access your funds early out of your IRA or your 401k, and that would be utilizing this part of the tax code, which is called the 72T early distribution. And by doing so, what you do is basically you sign up to take a specified amount of payments withdrawn out of your IRA or your 401k for a set period of time. And the catch here is that by doing so, you are required to make these withdrawals for 5 years or until you reach the age of 59.5, whichever is longer, and you have to do so, and it can't be any less or any more than what you set up initially. Now, this is something you really want to peruse through the IRS website to make sure this works for yourself specifically, and you're going to have to follow it all the way through. So this is a bit of a dangerous one, but if you're in a desperate circumstance, this is just something I wanted to share with you in case you needed to get these funds right now. One of the most effective ways that you can use to actually get your funds early and access them when you need them is if you withdraw the like button for the YouTube algorithm. Now, I'm just kidding. It's not a way you can do it, but if you wouldn't mind tapping the like button, that would mean a lot to myself. It would help the channel a lot as well. But on that note, I just want to encourage you once again that if you're planning to take money out of these accounts early, this should be your last resort. This is not something you want to take lightly. This is something that's very serious, and I'm really sorry if you're in a circumstance right now where you're required to take these funds out early, but hopefully these areas that I shared with you can at least point you in the right direction so that you know that if you need to get these funds, there are a few circumstances that apply, and there's obviously that 72T distribution that could help you if you're in need right now. You might be asking yourself, well, what if I only need the money short term? Now, in that sense, there are a few alternatives that you have outside of just doing a normal withdrawal, and that would actually be utilizing the loan systems that apply to your retirement accounts. You can actually take out a 401k loan out and basically borrow against your 401k account. And this is an interesting situation because you could do so maybe if you needed to buy a home or do something to that extent. There are less thresholds you have to go through. There's no credit score. You're not going to affect your credit score by doing this. You're generally going to pay a low interest rate, and then you're paying the interest back to yourself into your account. So there are some benefits associated with that. Now, bear in mind, generally myself, I am not someone who encourages debt or encourages taking out loans that are unnecessary. So this is something you want to proceed with caution. But one thing I would like to caution you about this is that if you are going to take out a 401k loan, you need to check with your plan administrator, but also if you lose your employment or if you sever ties with your employer, you would still require to be able to pay that back within 60 to 90 days of the termination or the time you resign. So if you take out this loan expecting to pay it over the course of a number of years, you really want to be considering what is the long-term prospect for you to remain with this company, because otherwise you might be finding yourself with a steeper bill sooner if you decide to leave that employment. One final way that you can access these funds in the short term is if you do an IRA rollover bridge loan. And this is a bit more complicated, but what you would in effect do is you'd convert your 401k and roll that over into an IRA, and you're allowed to do this once every 12 months. And then during that period of time, you would then withdraw a loan out of your IRA. Bear in mind though, you'd have 60 days to pay that back into the account. So it's a bit more complicated, a bit riskier, but it's just something that you have as an alternative. And once again, I'm just a guy on YouTube not giving financial advice. So you'd really want to check with your own financial advisor on this, but it's an alternative method that you could employ to be able to access those funds if you need them. As you can see, there are a number of ways you can access funds out of your retirement account, whether that's your IRA or your 401k, but you really want to proceed with caution on this because this should be the last resort. This should not be the first thing that you're pursuing, and generally speaking, you're going to lose a lot of the benefits of compound interest, and it's going to prevent you from maybe hitting your long-term goals. So my encouragement to you in this sense is obviously if you can get through this short period of time where we're dealing with this pandemic and we're dealing with some financial uncertainty, and you can move forward and actually pursue your longer-term financial objectives, that's what I would strongly encourage you to do. And that just requires all of us to maintain a philosophy and apply it to our daily approach on how we spend our money. And that's by doing everything we can to cut spending, save money, avoid lifestyle inflation, avoid debt, and then invest strategically in areas that we understand. Specifically, I like doing so in index funds. And if you want to get started in investing, you can actually grab free stocks down below from both Robinhood and WeBull. And also, if you want to invest into index funds and have a longer term approach, I specifically like using the robo-advisor Wealthfront. I have a link in the description as well where you can go and check that out. So there are ways for us to move forward strategically and achieve our long-term goals, but it does require discipline, it does require time and energy and effort. And I don't want to discount any of the challenges that you might be facing right now that are requiring you to get funds right at this moment. So I'm hoping that what I share with you could be applicable and helpful for you. But if you're able to avoid having to withdraw money out of your retirement accounts right now, I hope that you can pursue those other strategies and that can help you move forward and achieve your goals. With all that being said, I'd like to thank you for watching the video today. If you wouldn't mind, please like the video. That would really mean a lot to myself personally, and it also help push this video to other people who might need to hear it. Furthermore, if you wouldn't mind, please comment down below. I'd love to interact with you, get to know you, doing research on your behalf, and actually answer any questions that you might have. Furthermore, if you wouldn't mind, please subscribe to the channel. That would mean a lot to myself personally as well. And also what I want to encourage you to do is that I want to make content that makes a positive impact in your life by encouraging you and myself to lead lives of meaning and purpose, all while maintaining balance and moderation. So I'm hoping if you subscribe to this channel and be able to watch my videos on a regular basis, it can encourage you as well. And if you do subscribe to the channel, please tap the notification bell. That will notify you every time I post a video, which I do on a weekly basis. And once again, I'd like to thank you for watching the video today. I hope you're wonderful every day. Talk to you next time. Whoop,